Welcome to another episode of Dad Can We Talk? I am your host, Anthony Ray, and this is episode 117. And today I am here with my man, Kelly, John Philippe. Hope I said it right, but
you got it. You got it.
Yeah, man. So before we get started, for all my listeners out there, man, appreciate the support. You know, everyone that's supporting me, everyone that likes everything on the page, people that comment, all my subscribers on YouTube. I appreciate y'all. But for those that might listen to this who's not subscribed to the YouTube channel, go to Dad Can We Talk on YouTube, subscribe to the channel. You can also find all the other episodes streaming on every podcast place, wherever you get them from, Spotify, Apple Podcasts. You can easily go to dadcanwetalk.com. You can find everything there. And you can find me on Facebook at Dad Can We Talk, Instagram at Dad Can We Talk, TikTok, Dad Can We Talk, just everywhere. Just go into Google and type in Dad Can We Talk, and you will absolutely run into some sort of link that links you to Dad Can We Talk. So yeah, I just need y'all to do that before we start this today. Man, for everyone else out there, I'm hoping I'm wrong, but man, I ran into an issue today again with my computer. For everyone that knows, man, for 3 months I was without a computer. Everything got fixed. I sent it to Best Buy. They fixed the entire logic board, and I got it back. It was working perfectly. I got up today, needed to do some work, and it wouldn't turn on again. So I'm planning to take it to Best Buy tomorrow, see if they can look at it. Hopefully it's an easy fix, but I cannot win with this MacBook. It's giving me headaches. But
sorry,
bro. We'll leave tomorrow's problems for tomorrow, and we're gonna focus on today. So today, like I said, I'm here with my man Kelly, who is the host of Welcome to Fatherhood podcast. And he is up in my city, the city of Philadelphia, the city of brotherly love. If anybody knows me personally, y'all know how big of a fan I was of Allen Iverson growing up. So Philly always has a place in my heart. And I'm just excited to sit with one of the brothers of the city right now to talk family and fatherhood. So y'all welcome to the show, my man, Kelly, John Philippe. How you doing, bro?
I'm doing well, bro. I really appreciate you having me on, man. Equally an Allen Iverson fan. I think that was the era where Philadelphia basketball was actually legit. Ever since AI, there hasn't been another superstar like him, and I don't think there ever will be. The answer, Allen Iverson. He's still revered in the city of Philadelphia to this day. So, yeah, man, I'm a avid basketball watcher because of AI. So we share that passion for AI too.
Yes, sir, man. Allen Iverson, if you ever hear this, man, you know, holla at me. You know, I reached out to you on IG. I reached out to you on Twitter. Man, listen, if you ever hear this, bro, I need you. I just need you on the podcast, bro. We can talk family, fatherhood, all that. You
hey,
know,
man, when he responds, bring me on the show, bro.
Oh yeah. So, man, I like to start the podcast off the same way every time. I got the same first question. So I'm gonna ask you this question and let you ride with it. What was your relationship like with your dad?
So my relationship with my dad was non-existent, to be quite honest with you. I'm not sure of this part of the story, but very early on, he moved to the United States. So my entire family is of Haitian descent, if people couldn't pick that out by the last name. So I'm Haitian through and through, mom's side, dad's side. So when I was about a year and change, because my younger sister and I are 2 years apart, my mom decided to move back to Haiti from where we were living out in South America. That's where my parents met. And so somewhere in between a year and change, maybe about 2 years old, until I was about 10 years old. I did not live with my father. So I knew nothing about him. It's not that my parents were divorced or anything like that. If I remember the story correctly, the plan was for him to move to the United States and then get established, prepare the way so that we could come later on, but that never actually happened. So the earliest memory that I have of my dad was when he came to Venezuela, which we had moved back to South America. We were living in Venezuela um, for a weekend, and he just surprised visited us. And I remember that was the first time I saw my dad. And
Wow.
that was like, whoa, here is this mythical figure who actually exists, right? So he came with some gifts from the United States. I mean, I just thought he was a god, bro. Like just thinking back about it now, I'm just like, that really left an impression on me. Like, wow, he exists. So, and by that time, I think I was maybe somewhere in between like 5 and 8 years old. And again, he came for a weekend, and then as quickly as he came, he left. The next time I saw my dad was when I was 10 years old, when I came to the United States. And I lived with him from 10 to 11. Yeah, from like 10 to 11, 12-ish. And then he sent us to my uncle's house, maternal uncle's house in Florida for 2.5 years, and then lived with him again, which was the second time ever in my life when I was about, what, at that point, I was about 15, 16, all the way through high school. I went away to college in 2003. I came back from college in 2007. 2008, he walked out, and it's been a whatever relationship since 2008. The last time I saw him was in 2018, a couple of months before I got married. And that was the first time in a decade at that time that both, or my father, my mother, and I were together in the same house, because in 2008, when he walked out, it had been my mother, my father, and I in the same house. So a decade apart, the three of us find ourselves again under the same roof. And man, I remember I had such clarity going into married life, and I wanted to disassociate myself from all of that stuff, walking into my life with my wife and establishing my own family. And I just had, for the first time in my life, I had a man to man talk with my father, always keeping the respect level, but being very honest and transparent with him, letting him know that for the past decade, I had been taking care of his woman, and that now that I'm going to commit myself to my own woman, I was divorcing myself from his woman and putting that responsibility back on him.
Wow.
Letting him know that, I no longer held any resentment towards him, that I no longer hated him or any ill feelings towards him, because I didn't want to walk into my new life with any of that stuff. And I was sincere when I said it then, and I'm sincere when I said it now, when I say it now, rather. And I just told him, I know life is funny and cyclical in that way. You're getting older, and maybe life is going to be that somebody's going to need to take care of you. And I just want you to know, if that's the case, I'll take care of you. I will honor you. I will respect you. If you have to breathe your last, I'll make sure you go out in the best way possible. Like, I'm not going to mistreat you or anything like that. None of that, like that's not even in the questions. You my pops. It is what it is. Things happened, and that was that. All that being said, we don't have a relationship. Like, I haven't spoken to him since 2008. I don't seek him out. He doesn't seek me out. I have two boys. He's seen my oldest son on video when he and my sister were talking for a little bit, and then that also fell off. So that just kind of gives you a broad overview summary of what it's been like since I was about a year and change, and now I'm a 38-year-old man.
Wow. Mm. Now that's some real stuff right there, man. And I would say, I think it's good, that you had the opportunity to, get off your feelings, tell them how you really felt. And I think sometimes that's the most that we could do, honestly, as children. Um, be honest with our parents, tell them where we stand, and everything else is left up to them.
Yeah, yeah, I agree
I think it's
100%.
much more you can do.
I agree 100%. And it felt so freeing for me too. Like I remember after I finished talking to him, I went back downstairs in the basement where I was staying at in my mom's house, and I just felt so light.
Mm,
Like there was no regret about anything that I said or the way that I said it. And again, I was very conscious about not being disrespectful to my father, because it wasn't about disrespecting. It wasn't about saying that I'm a better man than he is, because I understand that at any moment, I could do to my family what
mm,
he's done to us in our family.
that's right.
So like there was no remorse, no resentment, none of those really strong feelings that I used to have for him while I was working out my issues with him for a really, really, really long time.
Mm,
That evening when I was talking to both him and my mother, man, I just told him what I needed to tell him. I told my mom what I needed to tell her. I made sure they both understood that I was washing my hands clean from their shenanigans, and
mm,
that, they made a commitment to each other to love and protect, and in better or worse, sickness and in health, for better or worse, until death do them apart. I was like, look, I'm about to make that same commitment to my woman, a woman of my choice.
mm,
I can't be dealing with y'all situation no more, man. Like
right,
that's on y'all. So yeah, it was freeing for me,
mm,
and it definitely made me feel empowered to walk into my marriage knowing that as best as possible, I wasn't doing it as a way to replay or undo any of that stuff. It
mm,
really gave me the cleanest slate I could possibly have walking into my marriage. And it's been fruitful since
mm,
then. Again, we don't have a relationship, but it is what it is.
mm. Man, that is so real, bro. And I hope that a lot of people that are listening, uh, if you're not married and you're thinking about marriage, what this man just said is so important. And I would pray that people would hear these types of messages, because I think there's many reasons why the divorce rate is as high as it is. But I think I'm more than sure I know that what you said has plays a big factor. A lot of people take that type of trauma and hurt and all of that stuff into a marriage. And man, when you're carrying that type of weight, and now that the responsibility that you have now as a husband to your own wife, man, you got to be able to let stuff like that go. You have to, because now you have your own children, your own wife, and your own house to take care of. And if you're still carrying weight and baggage from your own parents, it won't work, man.
Facts.
It will
Fact.
not work.
Yeah. I remember reading the story in a book. Wow. During one of those, it took me a good like 10 years, intentional 10 years to work through my baggage with my dad. And this was just me working things out on my own. I don't recommend that. I for sure recommend people finding like a professional counselor or therapist so that they can get the professional help and maybe do it in less the time that it took me to, get to a healthy point. But I remember I was reading this book, and The author of the book is a marriage counselor and a therapist. So he was talking about this experience that he had counseling this guy whose father walked out on him when he was about somewhere between 4 and 6 years old.
Mm,
And the guy clearly remembers when the father walked out and the impact that had on him as a young boy. And so he grew up and he decided that, he would never do to his family what his father did to him, because he didn't want to pass that pain on to his children once he started his own family.
mm,
So he grows up. He is very successful, and he finds a woman. They get married. They have a son. And, you're a married man. Marriages are up and down. They're rocky. That's
yes,
what
sir.
every marriage is not perfect. So they're going to through their turbulent moments and what have you. And things got to a point where he walked out on his family
Mm,
when his son was somewhere in between 4 and 6 years
mm.
old.
Wow.
So he is going to this author in therapy, and they're working through these things. And the therapist helped him realize that when he went into his marriage, like the core reason why he went into his marriage was to try to prove to
Mm,
himself and to his father that he would be a better man than his dad. And then everything then was geared towards that. Like that was the energy that was driving everything. And the conclusion from the whole thing, the aha moment for him in therapy was, in trying to not be like his father, he ended
mm.
up being exactly like his dad.
Sheesh.
And I remember sitting there reading that book, and tears started streaming down my eyes, bro, because that helped me realize that at that point where I was at in my life, that's exactly the trajectory that I was on. That I was trying so hard to not be like him. When my mom would say stuff like, "You look just like your father," that stuff would eat at me. When I remember looking in the mirror once and I jumped back at my own reflection because I was like, "Oh my gosh, I look like that man." And I felt so disgusted with myself. Like, how could I look like this man? I had been trying so much to not try to be like him, but I couldn't escape the fact that I look like him. I couldn't escape the fact that he is my father. I couldn't escape the fact that without him, I wouldn't be alive. So none of those, I couldn't escape any of those things.
Mm,
And reading that other person's experience in that book just made me realize, if I keep down this trajectory, I'm going to end up being the very thing that I'm trying to not be like.
mm,
So I had a choice to make. I could either keep doing the same thing or find a different way to define who I wanted to be for myself, for whoever I would marry, to better set myself up to not repeat the same things that this guy experienced as I was reading in the book.
mm. Man, that is so powerful. And those generational curses are what exactly what they are, and I honestly don't think that you can escape those things, just by, you got to intentionally make, like, really be aware of where you are mentally, spiritually, and watch the things, because like you say about this guy, he became that very thing. And at times, even right now, sometimes when I'm talking with my kids, and I will fuss about different things, and then it's like God is telling me that that's you.
Mm,
The same thing that you fuss at them about, you do it. You
mhm,
got to fix it in you first, because if you don't fix it in you, it's going to pass on to your children. So I'm conscious of, like, and sometimes my kids will remind me of different things. They'll say, well, daddy, you do it. I'm like, I can't fight with that. I cannot fight with it. And so that's something that I'm always trying to be conscious of, my actions, if I don't fix my flaws and things, no one will ever be perfect.
Facts.
But it's like you got to really look at, things that you do, and realize that, yeah, if you don't fix it, it could possibly pass on to your children. And so I'm just always on myself, just doing self-reflection. And that's one thing I can say. I'm glad years ago I had that talk with my pops in 2011. And since then, we've been working toward just having regular communication, even during his time of incarceration throughout those years. I was still writing them and making sure I keep contact with him because, I'm like, I want to know my dad better. And that, as I've known him over the last 10 years and just having conversations with him and laughing and all this stuff, I'm like, I am so much like this dude, man. I can't escape it, but because we have this good relationship now to where we can talk and things, now I can have those talks with him, and I hear him say different things, and he tells me about stories from back when and all this. And I'm like, okay, so that's why, okay, I get it, and I had an aha moment a few years ago in marriage. I was really going through it, and I called my dad for the first time to talk with him about stuff like that. I never called him on serious stuff, relationship stuff. And I called him one night. It's like 1 a.m, and I'm just going through it. I'm like, man, I'm gonna call my dad. And when I called him, the advice wasn't the best advice. I must say that. But he was genuine. He was very genuine in the things that he said. And it was just a story that he told me about the one time that he was married and a mistake that he made. And as he was talking to me about that, I'm like, bro, this is why I called him. This is why God had me call my dad. I needed to hear him say what he just said. And it did everything for me. And I'm like, man, Pops, I love you, and I needed to hear his side of things and what he had to say to me about what led him to divorce and areas that he messed up in. And I'm like, man, that makes so much sense to me, and I didn't say it to him, but I don't feel like I needed to. I just needed to hear his voice and to hear what he had to say. And I left it at that and moved on. So yeah, man, that stuff is serious, and that's why I love to ask people about their relationships with their dads. And I don't think people take that stuff into account enough. It's very important to understand, I mean, even when you go to the doctor or the dentist, they ask you about family history.
Absolutely.
So important, because it's a good chance that things that your parents dealt with, diseases and sicknesses and all of these things, you could possibly deal with the same stuff because it's in your blood, man. It's in us to do what we saw, or sometimes we might not have even met our parents before, but it's just in us, man. And that's
Facts.
how God created us. So, man, it's so important to be able to go back and understand that past. So important. Love that story, by the way, man. So, man, so now what? How many kids do you have? Two, right?
So I got two boys. Yeah. One who's going to be 4 years old and then a 9-month old.
Ooh, woo. Man, I'm so glad I'm past those stages right there. I remember those stages. So what's that's been like, man?
Um, it's been everything. I mean, I really don't know how to respond to that question any other way. Becoming a father has been the greatest thing that has happened to me. Um, I've discovered a whole new facet of myself that I didn't think was one possible or existed. Um, just getting to the journey, getting to my boys has
Mm,
transformed who I am, how I think about this whole thing of conception and having children. I appreciate them so much more because of the journey to get to each one of them. It makes me realize how incredibly what's the word I'm trying to be nice about this sentiment because it's not a good sentiment. But when people ask questions like, so when are you gonna have another one? Or oh, you haven't gotten the girl yet, or you haven't gotten the boy yet, or I prefer a girl, and it's just like, yo, don't get slapped, man, because you don't like people think that it's as easy. And for some people it is, right? It's as easy as just like, hey, yo, shorty, come here, boom, and she pregnant and that's it. But for other people, you
mm,
go through things before you can finally get one child. And then
mm,
getting the one child, you have to be even more thankful that your child is healthy and
mm,
that your child is not, you know, it doesn't come, your child doesn't come with all sorts of different diseases or not even diseases, but like complications and just a whole bunch of things, man. So um just appreciating rather being a dad and
mm,
coming home and seeing my boys who are vibrant, they are healthy, they
mm.
are gorgeous, um, they are annoying as heck.
Yes, sir.
They have so much energy. I get irritated a lot of times. And even the things that they do that irritates me, I appreciate just the privilege to be irritated by my kids.
Yes, sir.
Because I also know people, I have three separate couple friends who are in the struggle to get one,
Mm.
and they haven't been able to conceive, right? So to be on this side where my wife and I have two, and we get to have sleepless nights, and I get to tell my son not to lick the floor, and I get to tell the other one to stop scratching his butt and putting his finger in his mouth or whatever the case is, like all of those things that I never thought I would have to say out loud to another human being. Like I am thankful and grateful that I'm in a position to be able to do that. So
Mm,
fatherhood has been everything to me, man.
mm,
My 3-year-old, who's soon to be 4, he's just a ball of energy. His little brother looks up to him, and so he doubles his big brother's energy. It's a madhouse. My wife and I are exhausted. We have to be really intentional about spending time with each other to not be so consumed with the boys. But
mm,
right now, my life revolves around being a dad first,
mm,
husband and father. Everything else is secondary.
mm,
Absolutely everything else is secondary. It doesn't matter. Work doesn't matter. If a friendship or relationship cannot fit into the category, into the hierarchy of you're not going to come before my wife, you're not going to come before my kids, then sorry, you got to go. You know what I mean? Like if work is like, you got to do this, but it's going to interfere with something relating to my kids, sorry, then I got to go. So
mm.
like none of that matters to me. I'm a husband first. I'm a father first. Everything else is secondary.
Straight up. And man, that's so important. When I was at my last job working at the warehouse, you know, that was something that I always was sure of, like making sure, I'm telling them, and I didn't want to be like that. Sometimes I'm just like, bro, listen, I gotta go.
Yeah,
I
man.
really have to go, man. Like, I mean, you can write me up, do what you're gonna do, but bro, I gotta go. I gotta go get my kids. Like, what else do you want me to do? And I don't think enough people, I mean, some people would say that's crazy, but you just have to sometimes, I mean, someone has to do it, either me or it's gonna be my wife.
Yeah. Listen,
And
man, call me crazy, call me whatever. That's cool, right? Because everyone is entitled to their own opinion. And I know I've shared this with people before, and they're like, "Yeah, but you got to work." Absolutely, I have to work. No one. I'm not saying. I don't know if this is where you. I'm not saying that I don't have to. That I don't want to. Rather, provide
yeah,
for my family or anything like that.
sure.
It's not about that. There is a hierarchy of importance.
Mm,
And for me, work will never be more important than my kids and my wife.
mm,
And so instead of trying to fit my family into my work demands, it's
mm,
flipped for me. My work demands have to fit around my family life, right? Because we often talk about work life balance. And it's not until I heard somebody say it the other way that I was like, yes, absolutely. For me, I have grasped onto its life work balance.
mm,
It's my wife, it's my kids, and
mm,
then work comes later.
mm.
Because one thing that has become crystal clear to me, my kids are going to grow up because they're growing up too fast already. My wife and we ain't getting younger. And so our marriage is important. If you don't sow into your relationships, they're going to wither. But
Better believe it.
the institution where I work at, it's always going to be there. There's always going to be other jobs. Money's going to come, money's going to go. My family, though, the time that we have together, the time that we have to spend with each other, not knowing what can happen at any given moment, nah, man, that is way more important to me. So whether we
Mm,
have nice things or not, inconsequential, whether we live in a nice house or not, inconsequential, whether we drive a nice car, inconsequential, whether my kids, have Tim's or fresh Air Force Ones or Polo this or Gucci that or whatever, inconsequential. Am I pouring into them? Check. Am I pouring into my wife? Check. Do they have clothes on their back? Check. Do they have food to eat? Check. Are we making memories? Check. That's it. That's all that matters to me.
mm. Man, we got to use that one. Life work balance.
Man, take
Man,
that for free, bro. For free. Life work balance.
man, we finna put in a petition for that, man.
Yeah.
We are changing it from work life to life work, man. Listen, this is about to be a whole, yeah, we're about to change this, man. We're going, I'm putting in a petition to all jobs. Do not come at us with work-life balance.
Nope.
We need life work balance.
Yeah. And listen,
Oh,
I'm so serious about it because I'm in the process of looking for ways to transition out of what I'm currently doing.
yeah,
And my mind is already set.
yeah,
Next time I sit at an interview, that has to be crystal clear to my
mm,
potential employer. You're not the priority. And
mm,
and it's just that simple.
straight
You're
up.
not the priority. My family's the priority.
Mm,
And don't tell me that you support me being a family man. And then once I say yes and I sign on the dotted line, then you think you're going to flip it on me. No,
mm,
because the worst thing you can do, the worst thing that could happen to me, Anthony, is that I get fired.
mm. Believe
Big
me.
whop. There's another job that I can find somewhere else. So the threat of losing a job or prestige or X amount of money, that means absolutely nothing to me, bro. It means nothing to me. My wife, the health of my wife, the health of my kids, emotional, spiritual, psychological, all sorts of the untangible health things, like that's what matters. Memory making, yes, my son needs me to be at a parent teacher conference. I'll confess my sins to you. Tomorrow, my wife and I are going to a parent teacher conference for our 3-year-old. I was supposed to have the day off tomorrow if I worked this past Sunday. I didn't work this past Sunday because I switched with another colleague. So that means, because I work 4 days a week, 10 hours a day. So that means in order to get my 40 hours, I would have to work Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. But we had already scheduled this parent teacher conference for tomorrow. And tomorrow is my scheduled date day with my wife.
Yeah.
So when she reminded me of that, I was like, oh man, maybe I could leave work early to go to the parent teacher conference because I had forgotten about the date day. And then I remembered and I was like, hold on, babe, but we also have our date day on Wednesday. And she was like, yeah, we could always reschedule. I was like, nah, family. No, 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 no. Tomorrow morning, I'm gonna wake up and I'm gonna send an email and say, hey, I got a 24-hour bug, can't come to work today. And that's that. Fire me if you want to, man. It's my kid, it's my wife. End of story.
Straight up, man. Straight up, man. I can't tell you how many times I've done it. Man, I will call out in a minute or just leave work in a minute.
In a heartbeat.
Oh man, seriously. And I've honestly, man, I've been blessed. Like you say, you've been planning. Man, I've been planning to get out of what I was doing for like 8 years. And and I always told myself, I'm not gonna leave warehousing until I'm doing something that I really want to do. Because the warehousing, it makes pretty good money for someone like me who didn't have a degree and all of these things. And I'm just like, yeah, I'll just stay in this until I find something that I really want to do. And I'll just take on the consequences. And man, there's been so many times where I've been right on the edge of being fired. And they're like, bro, if you miss another day in the next 6 months. And I'm like, cool, I'm good. I can hang out for 6 months. I can do good for 6 months. And then as soon as those 6 months are done, man, I'm back to it, and just playing it how I could until I could get to a better place. And man, the beginning of this month, man, I finally got out of the warehouse. I started working for a company called Healthy Start. And so now I work full time with dads.
Nice.
It's like I'm almost like a fatherhood coach. Like people are life coaches. I'm like a dad coach
That's
now.
dope, man.
So I'm like, you're gonna pay me to do that? Bro, I would do that for free. I'm like, I'll do that for free. And you mean to tell me you're gonna pay me? And they're like, yeah. So, it's been like the craziest blessing. It almost feels fake. I've been doing it for like almost a month now. And I'm still kind of like, I'm just almost waiting for it to be like, yeah, this is
Psych.
a real thing, So I'm like, I really get paid, and
Hey,
I
you
haven't
might have to
really
put
got,
me on to that, man. What's up?
bro, man. If I see something up in y'all area, I'm not sure. I'm gonna look into that. But if I see something, man, I'll definitely shoot it your way because like we had a Zoom meeting one day, and so I work from home now. So it's like I'm hybrid. I can work from home or the office. I'm usually at the house. And on the Zoom, and I'm kind of telling the guy who's over it, I'm like, bro, like 150, I gotta leave and go get my kids from school. And then after I get my kids from school, they're gonna be home. So I'm not too sure how it's gonna work out. I mean, I could try to get him to be quiet. He's like, bro, you are a dad support specialist. He's like, bro, we understand that we work with people that are parents. You're a dad. Bro, go get your kids, even if
Yeah.
you just gotta keep the camera on, turn your mic on mute. Do what you got to do. And I'm like, cool. He's
Yeah.
like, yeah, it feels good to work for a company that isn't down your back about your kids. I'm like, yeah, I mean, yeah, I ain't never heard that right there. So I mean, I went and got the kids and I'm fixing them food. I got everything on mute. I'm just kind of like, I'm still peeping in. I can hear them talking, and it was cool. I'm like, man, I've just never been in a position like this to where I can actually be a dad and not feel bad about it. Not
Mm-mm.
feel like Man, these people over here they're gonna write, I'm gonna get rolled up because my kid got sick at school. Like, and you're gonna write me up.
Yeah,
And
man.
man,
Yeah.
that stuff, yeah, that's a whole thing right there. I can go on stuff like that forever because people that worked with me knew how I was. And they're like, one thing about you, Aunt, bro, you will not put this job over the fam. I'm like, I'm not, bro. Like, if the school called me, I promise I'm leaving, bro. Like, I'm not even gonna play. I'm gonna go straight to the office. And I would tell guys, that I would work with, they would have different issues with their family. I'm like, bro, why you at work?
Mm, mm.
Well, I can't do, man, listen, bro, I will go talk to the people for you. And I have done that type of stuff. Like, I would go talk to my manager, like, hey, man, this dude got an issue going on. Like, I really think he should be able to go home. Like, I would cover for him, like, do double my work just so he can go home, and just really speaking up for guys because I'm like, bro, don't put Walmart over your family, bro. Walmart,
Nah.
bro, if you leave today and you get fired, bro, they will have your replacement like in probably
In
tomorrow,
no time. In
in
no
no
time.
time. Like,
Yeah.
they don't care about you, man. Like, if you hurt yourself in here, you mess around and you die, bro, they send your family some flowers, bro.
Yeah. They ain't covering them costs.
Man, come on, man. So, it's stuff like that. Just I'm always preaching to guys like, bro, don't ever put that job over your fam, bro. Like, your kids, yeah, you can make a whole bunch of money, but I've read so many stories of people that rich people that died and they had like 10 people at their funeral. And then I see normal guys here in my community who was from job to job, just trying to make it, or everyday regular 9 to 5 guy who has like hundreds of people at their funeral when they pass
Mm,
because of the impact that they had, for one, on their family, and for the impact that they had on their community.
facts.
And people looked at them as stand-up men. They stood up for their community, they stood up for their family. And I'm like, that's the type of person I want to be. Like, I don't want to be a person that just made a whole bunch of money in my life, and did all this stuff that really doesn't matter, and I never did touch the lives of my own children, you know, didn't love my wife, that type of stuff. So where do you stand on, like, talk about the importance of, or how important is it to you to be not only a father to your children, but a father to others around you, nieces, nephews, uh, just being an example really for other people's kids, in the community, kids that might see you. How important is it for a man to be an example in this community?
Yeah. So I'll respond to that in a couple of different ways, just drawing on my personal experience. So because my father was not, that whole thing that I explained with my dad, growing up, I had to piece together what a man was,
Mm.
by virtue of what I didn't have and what I didn't see. And when I saw the things that I saw in the little bits of time that I lived with him, just kind of hearing how, my mom would respond to certain things that he did or didn't do, and how my mom would be like, I wished he did this, or those type of things. And I'm like, okay, so I'm piecing together what it meant to be a man, a husband, and a father by virtue of what was absent from me, what was not available for me. And then simultaneously, I had people in my life who were stand up men. And so when I started hanging out with them and I started seeing their families up close and personal, I started seeing how regular this guy would tell his son that he loved him, and how regular he would tell his wife that he loved her. This guy from my church, his name is Frank. Shout out to my man Frank. He's like,
Right.
He is a father figure to me. And Frank, as a staple in our church, has been a father figure to so many of the people of my generation, because every family is turbulent, right? But even for those who have like good father figures, Frank still found a way to be a father, an extra father figure to them, and
Mm.
to shower people with love and all of that stuff. And I remember the first time Frank said he loved me, how awkward that felt, because I was like, ugh, bro, like
Yeah.
I've never been told that before. And then simultaneously was like, oh shoot, like it's okay for another man to tell another man that he loved them. So I was like, when I heard the words coming out of my own mouth, like I love you too, and I call him Pops. I don't even call him Frank. I'm like, I love you too, Pops, and it was just like, oh man, like that's just weird. Um, but just seeing how he treated his son. He and his wife only have one child, and seeing how he treated his wife was part of the reason why when I was going into my marriage, I was like, okay, I don't have to worry about who I want to be like, because I clearly have the example of my father and his marriage to my mom, and who he is to me as a father and all of that. Like I have all of that, and I
Mm.
am perfectly aware that I am shaped by all of that. And as best as I possibly can, I've disassociated myself from as much of that as possible. So now, who do I want to be like? What can I model myself after? The answer was very obvious, bro. Frank.
Mm.
So everything that there would be times that I would ask myself in situations like, man, what would Franco do about this? And then my mind would just start firing off in different ways, right? So I am a product of having a male figure or multiple male figures who are the kind of guys that we're talking about, stand up men who
Mm.
do the fathering thing good, who are good husbands to their wives, who are good role models in the community. And I see how I've benefited from that. And so now that I'm in a position as a husband and a father, I try to live my life as it pertains to me as an open book, so
Mm.
that the youngings who are looking up to me can feel confident and free and comfortable coming to ask me for things, right? Like I'm not going out to be like, hey, let me tell you about X, Y, and Z, but people who are asked, hey man, so ABC, and we're able to have those type of conversations. My nephew lives with me, so my older sister lives in the home with me, and my nephew's father is not involved in his life.
Mm.
So I have to be conscious of how I model myself as a father, not just to my sons, but now also to my nephew,
That's
right?
real.
So if I'm showering my kids with love, I also got to be mindful that I need to shower my nephew with love too, right? If I'm disciplining my oldest, I have to make sure that I also discipline my nephew in the same way, right? So
Mm.
that they can both understand, they can both see the ways that I'm modeling what it means to be a man. Because I feel like we're at a moment in our society where the masculinity topic can take on a variety of different spins, right?
Mm.
But one thing is for sure is that some of the old tenets of what it means to be a man from our father's generation and our grandfather's generation, we right now of this generation, we're like, that just doesn't work anymore. Like the whole real men don't cry thing, like that just doesn't work anymore.
Straight
So
up.
teaching them how to use their words as opposed to lashing out and stuff like that, teaching them how to say I love you to each other, picking up my sons and kissing him until he gets sick and tired of me. You know what I
Mm.
mean? Like normalizing those things to be like, hey, manhood is more than just being strong and tough and whatever. It also requires as much strength to actually say I'm sorry, to
Mm.
actually
Mm.
open up and apologize, to actually, just sit there and cry, to actually say, I don't know how to do this. to actually say I need help, to actually say I need to go seek out therapy. Like it includes all of that. And so I'm mindful of those things and conversations that I have with my kids. I have friends who have kids who are like teenagers, and I am grateful that they trust me with their children to be able to counsel their children and have them pick my brain. And we have that relationship where, I can give advice to their kids, and they see it as that's good advice. Like I have a good buddy of mine, he would tell his son or daughter, be like, go ask Kelly, go talk to Kelly about this thing. If you don't want to talk to me about it, go talk to Kelly about this thing. So I'm incredibly privileged to be in this position of being. I don't personally consider myself like a role model. What I do consider myself as is someone who has an understanding of life that whatever has been beneficial to me, I don't want to hold it and hoard it for myself. I want to give it freely, free of charge to whoever needs it, because it's been good to me. So if it's been good to me and it was given to me free of charge, why not pass it on to the next person to better somebody else's life and circumstance in that way? So that's just the way I approach my life.
Oh my God, you speaking, bro. Oh my God. So many great points in that, man. Wow. One thing that I took from that really it hit me a few weeks ago is the, men crying and, being able to show our kids, that we have emotions also, and that we're humans. And maybe probably about 2 or 3 weeks ago, I get into this big argument with my daughter um in the morning before school. And I forgot what we were even going back and forth about. And I was just so upset. And she said something that really just, she said something about, what did she said, she went in her room and she was like, I don't even want you to take me to school today. I don't even want to see you
Mm.
today, or something like that. And because I was so upset, I was like, whatever, like, good. I went to my room. And so I took my two youngest to school and I came back home. So I usually take them to school, come back home, and wait until it's time for her to go to school and take her. And so when I came back home, I went in my room. I didn't say too much to her. She didn't say anything to me. She was just in her room. And she usually leaves at about 8. So I know, I'm like, okay, it's about that time for her to leave. I'm going to see if she's going to come in the room. I heard her with her key. And the school is like right across the street. And she used to walk when you know, she used to walk to school before I got this new job. And so I'm like, well, maybe she's gonna walk to school. I'm like, whatever, I ain't gonna mess with her. And so I hear her with the key, she opens the door. I'm like, she's really leaving. She goes out the door, she closes the door, I hear her lock it. I'm like, oh, I'm like, man, I feel like such a bad dad, bro. Like, why am I allowing my pride to get in the way, bro? Like, you're not
Yeah.
supposed to do that. And I'm really just, I'm angry with myself because I know I shouldn't have been as angry as I was. And I'm just like, you really just let this girl walk out, bro. And then I just heard the door open back. She comes into my room and she's just like, she's crying and she's like, Daddy, can you please take me to school? I don't want to go by myself. Man, when I tell you I broke down, bro, just, man,
Yeah.
it was just one of those moments, man, where I'm like, I I gotta put my pride to the side, man, you know, because it should not have gotten to the place to where it got to. And yeah, that's on me to diffuse that situation.
Mm.
And as much as I wanted to, and as much as I knew I needed to, I didn't. And my pride was just gonna allow me to just allow my baby to just go to school because I'm like, whatever, like she always says all these things. I don't want you to do this and all these things. And I'm like, I'm just gonna allow her to see it. Like, and it took for my baby to come back and to do that. And all I could do is just hug her, bro, for like
Yeah.
10 minutes. And I'm just crying. And I'm just like, I'm so sorry, baby. Like, I'm so sorry. Like, I'm so sorry. And she's wiping my face. And now this is probably like her second or third time ever seeing me just really cry, man. And
Mm.
I'll never forget the first time she saw me cry. She was like 3 or 4. And I just never forget. She saw me crying and she was like, Daddy, I didn't know I didn't know that parents cry. And I remember when she asked me that, and it was a pretty serious moment in our lives. Some A lot of stuff was going on at that time, and I remember just telling her, you know, like, yeah, daddy gets sad sometimes too, you know, and explaining the whole situation to her back then. And I think from that point, she never forgot that. You know, for years, she would always bring that up. She would always say, you know, Daddy, I remember I saw you crying that time. And, you know, we would have talks about it. And that later that day, you know, I took her to school. And later that day, we were out somewhere. I met my wife after she got off work with the kids. I think I took them to the park or something. And I heard her whispering to my wife. She was like, Daddy was crying this morning.
Thanks, baby. Thank you.
And man, I'm thinking to myself, man, why is she telling my wife that? That was supposed to be between me and her.
Thanks for ruining
That's
the moment, baby.
and later that night, my wife was like, "Hey, Ashley told me that you were crying this morning." I'm like, "Well, that was supposed to be between me and her." Like, she was like, "What are you crying about?" And I told her the situation, and we laughed about it. I'm like, dang, man, she gonna just tell the world that I was just crying like a baby this morning, you know. And I was just telling my wife, you know, I just felt so bad, man. You know, just I know that's something that I really got to work on, you know, because I get stubborn at times, and you know, and I always tell you know they'll say different things. I'm like, okay, I'll let you see, I'll let you find out, you know, and I'm like, I can't be like that, man. You know, I have to be a better example on how to diffuse situations, on how to deal with disagreements, you know, and I just can't be like that. You know, I just can't, you know. So yeah, like when you said that, that just brought back to my memory, like, you know, sometimes you know, it's okay to go back and say you're sorry, you know, when you make mistakes and tell your kids, no, I was wrong,
Yeah.
you know, sit them down and have those conversations with them and really just be humble enough, you know, walk in humility and let them know, you know, daddy messed up, you know, and I should not have said that. I should not have done that, you know, and that's so important for dads. Uh, because I don't think people associate fatherhood with those types of characteristics, you know, that we do things like that. But that's so important, man.
No, it is. And I can think of, times now as an adult, just looking back, just wishing that, my mom would have taken
Mm,
accountability for some of the things that she mishandled.
mm,
And, there's always this drive or this impulse rather to just be like, but she was a great mom. And it's like, nobody's saying that, our parents were not good parents unless they actually were not good parents.
Exactly.
We're only talking about the importance of being able to just get off your high horse, get off your pedestal, and just being like, hey, yo, I messed up. Like I didn't do this right. And this is yet one of those other things that, you know, and where we at in history now, where it's like we're trying to get away from that ego, right? We're trying to get away
Mm.
from that lack of accountability. I mean, like I said, my son is going to be 4 years old. So when he was like 2 years old, last year at some point, um, we have two cats. So in the mornings I feed the cats, and he wanted to feed the cats with daddy. So I put the kibbles in a cup, and I give it to him, and I'm like, hey, go downstairs, make sure you put a little bit in each of the bowls so that the cats can have something to eat. He's 2 years old, man. Like, what was I expecting a 2-year-old to do? Right? But clearly at that time, I was expecting my 2-year-old to follow my exact command as I dictated he should do.
Mm.
Long story short, I go downstairs and he has all the food in one cat bowl and like two kibbles in another one. And I don't know why I lost it. I was like, dude, I lost it. I mean, I really gave him an earful for not following instructions. And I remember, like I'm telling the story and I see his face now. The look on his face was both perplexed and just like hurt
Yeah.
that daddy was coming at him so strongly, so early in the morning over cat food.
Mm.
Man, I felt like a piece of trash, bro. So I went downstairs, I fixed it. And as I'm fixing the cat food, I'm like, Kel, you realize you just came really hard at your 2-year-old over
Mm.
some cat food, bro.
Mm.
And I just started to feel so bad, man. So I called him downstairs. Actually, I went back upstairs and I said, hey, buddy, can you come downstairs with daddy, please? And I brought him to the scene of the crime.
Mm.
And, you know, I did the thing, get on their level, and I looked at him in the eyes and I was like, listen, I am so sorry for what I did. I'm so sorry for the way that I spoke to you this morning. Daddy should have never spoken to you that way. Daddy should have spoken to you with a lot more respect. You don't deserve to be spoken that way. And I really messed up on this occasion. And I wanted to apologize to you. And in typical 2-year old fashion, in
Mm.
one ear, out the other. And he was like, can we play now? And I was like, sure. All right, like let's go back upstairs.
You
You know what I mean? It's like,
and,
okay, all right.
and that's why you gotta love kids, man. You know, they teach us so much. Like they can literally get over something just like that.
Just
You
like
know,
that.
it's
Yeah.
so hard for us because we're holding on to whatever it is that we're holding on to. And sometimes it's as easy as, I'm sorry. And they'll say, okay, daddy, I forgive you. And go on about their business.
Going about their
Don't
business.
even talk about it
Yeah.
anymore.
And the other side of that too is because it's easy for me as a parent to be like, well, he's only two. Like he don't deserve that because he's
Mm-hmm.
only two, right? But to actually force myself, because I mean, to be very transparent, it was very uncomfortable. It's hard. Even
Mm-hmm.
as adults, it's hard to apologize to another adult.
Yep.
Now imagine having to apologize to a kid and not
Mm-hmm.
just any other kid. Because if I wrong somebody else's kid for
Mm-hmm.
fear of offending you as the parent, I'll go out of my way to make sure that your child is really, but that's my kid. In the
Exactly.
back of our heads, there's always I brought you into this world, I could take you out. You know what I mean? Like, you my kid. So why should I apologize to you? And
Mm-hmm.
it's precisely because you're my kid, precisely because he's my son. that I felt like, no, man, I need to write this and in the best way that I possibly can. So I'm going to bring him back here to associate my apology to what happened just a little while ago. I'm not going to apologize to him up in the kitchen. I'm not going to apologize to him, in the living room. I want to create that link in his mind. Oh, okay. So he's referring to the thing that just happened here. And now daddy's apologizing to me. And whether I doubt he understood the magnitude of that as a 2-year-old because he just wanted to play. But it's the seed that's being planted, not just in his mind, but I'm also exercising a muscle as a parent to normalize apologizing to my kiddo when I realize that I screwed up. Because growing up, now that I'm a parent, I realize how many times, not even how many times, our parents were figuring it out as they're parenting. Because me and my wife are figuring it out as we're parenting. So they screwed up not because they wanted to, not because they were incapable, because they were growing up with us as their children. You know what I mean? As they were figuring out how to do life, marriage, parent, work, and whatever else. And again, my mom was doing this by herself in a foreign country with 3 kids and no family members around, right? So there's no template for any of that, and let alone there's no rule book or how to do that in a foreign country. So I'm like, I can empathize with when she was short fused with us, not to excuse it, not to condone it, but damn, bro, I would be a fool to say that I don't understand why she handled certain situations the way that she did. Because now, with my wife, and we're in a much better setting than she was, we're struggling. You know what I mean? Like, I'm struggling. When my son Eden was born 9 months ago, maybe about 2 month and a half, 2 month, no, month and a half. Yeah, about a month and a half in, I came down to this very spot where I'm sitting. I pulled out my insurance card and I called a number in the back to ask someone to give me a list of therapists in my area so that I can start talking to someone professionally on a consistent basis. Why did I do that? Because I realized that the transition from having 1 child to 2 was taking a toll on me mentally. We weren't sleeping. I was becoming short fused with my oldest one. I was becoming short fused with my wife. And when I get in that mode, I'm not a nice person. So I started to treat my family in a way that I didn't want to treat my family. And I realized that it wasn't about them. I was becoming the problem. I don't drink. I only drink socially, right? So if I go out, I'll take a margarita, which is my go-to drink. It got to the point where in the first month and a half of my son's life, every morning I was waking up, I wanted to make a margarita for me to drink. And I was like, I'm starting to develop a drinking problem as a means to cope with my stress level, which was through the roof. So I came down, I got together with a therapist, and I've been consistently seeing her every Friday for the past almost 9 months now. Right. And that has been good for me. It's been good and healthy for me because I know that I don't want to do those things. I don't want to be a liability to my family. So why do I say all of that? I say all of that because it's not just a matter of, or I'll say it this way. As a father, it is my responsibility to make sure that I am presenting myself in the best way that I possibly can. We're not going to be perfect all the time. We're not going to get it right all the time. Sometimes I want to take all that gentle parenting stuff and throw it out the window and let the ancestors come back up and win. You know what I mean? Like all of that is true. But I need to be as healthy as I possibly can
Mm,
for myself so that my family can get the best version of me. And a part of being healthy is also teaching my sons how to relate to each other in this parenting relationship. I'm clearly their father, but I'm not their father to the extent that I cannot humble myself and say I'm sorry when I've
mm.
wronged my kids.
That's so real.
And so they need to see me do that. They need to hear daddy say, not, hey, man, I'm sorry for X, Y, and Z. Because this is what I teach my son. You have to say exactly what you're apologizing for. I'm sorry doesn't cut it.
Mm,
So, hey, I call him Juki for short. Hey, Juki, I apologize for the way that I spoke to you. Daddy should not have spoken to you that way. And I'm
mm,
not making any excuses. I'm not saying that and then saying, but it's because I was tired. He doesn't care about any of that. That's not his problem. That's my problem.
straight up.
So, in order for me to be as healthy as I possibly can, as I'm trying to do the best and give the best of myself to my family, therapy was a life, has been a life changer for me to make sure that my health internally is good, and then practicing those things that are so uncomfortable and icky and I wasn't used to, making sure that I create that environment for my kids as they're growing up so that it becomes normal for them. What was not normal for me, I want to normalize for them those good things.
Mm, 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 mm. Guys, I always say this man is speaking and giving us game for the free 99. Man, all of that was, man, I need to go and seek me a therapist, man. I got to do it.
I
You know,
listen, bro. I recommend it to anybody. And I tell people it's not going to solve your problems, but
mm,
you will gain tools to better understand who you are,
mm,
your whys, and all of that stuff. And then you'll figure out how all of that translates into a healthier version of yourself.
mm,
So I recommend it to everybody. In the past month, I've recommended at least 4 or 5 people. I'm like, you need to seek a therapist. I don't care what what you've been told about, talking to someone professionally. We all a little crazy anyway, so get that whole I'm not crazy. No, yes you are. I'm
yeah,
crazy.
yeah,
We all crazy. Just get it out the way. So go talk to someone. I'm not going through anything right now. Perfect. That's the perfect time for you to actually get together with a professional counselor or therapist when you don't have anything going on with you, because
mm,
then now you're practicing. Now you're exercising that muscle. If you wait until something goes terribly wrong or when things start to fall off the wheels, that's too late.
mm,
That's too late. You know what I mean? So why not gain the tools when everything is good, so that when things start to go bad, you already have what you need to do what you need to do. So definitely, bro, go for it, man. I recommend it 10,000%.
so real. I'm definitely gonna be looking into that. Man, before we get out of here, man, I want you to talk about your podcast.
Yeah. So the Welcome to Fatherhood podcast is a podcast that I started when my son was born back in 2020. And I just wanted to share my journey of fatherhood. But you remember 2020, things were happening, the world
Yeah.
was in chaos. Becoming a father just opened my eyes to all of the dangers of the world and raising a Black son in America with all the protests and George Floyd and this and that and the third. So I started diving into all of that. I haven't actually released an episode in quite a while because I've been working on another platform that I established to specifically talk about the experiences of men with baby loss, so miscarriages in particular. So I've been doing a lot of work in that, but I do want to reprise the Welcome to Fatherhood podcast and bring it back to life and really just talk about where I'm currently at in life right now. Just the day-to-day stuff that I deal with, the thoughts that are going on in my mind, having like conversations like we had earlier about this whole life-work balance as opposed to work-life balance, what it feels like to be raising two boys under the age of 4, and all of the shenanigan. Like my 9-month-old is like a little Roomba. He just finds a random spot on the floor and just goes down and licks a whole streak. And it's just like, come on, dude, are you kidding me? You know what I mean? So those little things about being a parent, that, things that will come out of your mouth that you never thought you would have to say to someone. Hey man, take the shoe out your mouth, bro. Like what are you doing? Like, why are you eating a shoe? You know what I mean? Like, why are you asking for cream of wheat for the sixth night in the row? Like, what? There's other things to eat. Like those type of things. Just to give voice to the day-to-day dad who is actually in the trenches of fatherhood doing our thing, because we exist. And for as comical as those moments are, I know I have felt very isolated at times. And so I'm thinking just to be able to voice even that could be beneficial to somebody else who may also be feeling isolated in their day to day and unseen and maybe underappreciated, to be like, hey man, if you've argued with a 3 foot tall 75-pound little human about, you know, not sticking the fork in the electrical socket, I see you, fam. Like you're doing your thing. I see you. You're not by yourself. Keep up the good fight. Whether you get an acknowledgement or not, I see you. So that's the kind of flavor that I want to bring to the Welcome to Fatherhood podcast. So I'm thinking sometime in 2024. I'm not sure exactly when yet. I'm going to start doing that back up. But for the time being, I've been working on the Miscarriage Dads platform and podcast and YouTube channel to really grow that as a way to rally people's attention to say, hey, in this journey of fatherhood, there are men who have suffered baby loss, and no one is acknowledging the impact that it has on us. The conversation is dominated by what the woman's experience is, and no one is really thinking about what the impact is on fathers. And so if he's angry, if he doesn't know how to express himself, he has to go to work carrying all of that stuff. Like, let's take a step back and figure out how we can best support men and fathers through these events, or through this event. For me, it happened, we experienced multiple losses on our journey to our 2 boys. So these were multiple hits that I had to carry in silent because of a variety of different reasons, right? So it's like, hey, let's take a step back. Let's look at how we can provide support to fathers through this event, so that we can continue to be the healthiest versions of ourselves and actually process the things that we need to process and grieve in the ways that we're supposed to grieve, so that we can not just support ourselves, we can support our spouse or partner, support our families, and be healthier people altogether.
Man, I'm looking forward to listening, tuning in. That's such an important topic. So many topics that people overlook when it comes to dads, and that is definitely one of them, man. I think we're always just supposed to be Superman and never have anything going on. But newsflash, men go through things too, guys. We got
Facts.
some things that bother us sometimes. But like you say, we just go to work and just act like everything is fine. So yeah, very, very, very important conversation, man. And keep doing your thing, bro. I love to hear that. I'm always excited when I see another guy in this podcast thing, man. One of my reasons I started my podcast, when I even got the idea of it for like back in 2018, is because I felt like there weren't any we weren't being represented in this space, in the media world, especially with fatherhood podcasts, because I would always listen to podcasts, all types. And one day I'm like, you know what? I'm gonna go and find a fatherhood podcast. And I typed in stuff on my Apple podcast, and it was a little bit, but one thing that I really, really noticed was that there weren't any black hosts. There weren't any black guys. And I would listen to some of the podcasts and they were cool, but I was like, man, why, like, guys that I know probably wouldn't be able to necessarily relate to some of this stuff, because it's just they just, I'm like, man, I want to hear a podcast that sounds like me. It's a
Yeah,
person looks like me, talks like me, uses some of the same different, some of the same things that I I just wanted to hear something that sounded more like where I was, people that
facts.
grew up like me. And it just wasn't out there. Honestly, it wasn't. Like, that was like in 2018. And um I was like, I'm gonna start my own podcast and interview guys that I know that are like me, that most people would never even think to interview. They wouldn't think that these guys have anything interesting to talk about, but
Mm,
there's some real dads out here that have experienced all sorts of things. And so that's what I do, man. That's why I do it. And so when I see other guys like you now in the space, I'm like, man, what? I love that, bro, because
yeah,
there's so many of us now. And that's a great thing, to have all these different people with, you have these experiences that I haven't experienced. And to be able to hear you talk about it, I'm like, man, this dude is going to help so many people that I wouldn't even be able to reach because I haven't been through the things that you've been through. And so when I see someone like you, man, I want to be able to highlight you and give you a platform to talk about what you have going on. And hopefully, people that follow Dad Can We Talk, man, go follow my man's, Welcome to Fatherhood podcast. Go follow him, hear his stories and support him in the same way, and support the Miscarriage Dad. I know a few guys out there that have experienced that. I'm gonna actually take a clip out of this and send it to one of my friends, who has dealt with that. He still hasn't um, had a child yet. And I know that's something that me and him, we've talked about for years. And so I can't wait to be able to send him a clip of what you were talking about, just to give him that hope, and to give him that comfort that he might need in this time of his life. So, man, I really appreciate what you do, bro, and keep doing it, please, bro. We need more men out here that are willing to keep it real and talk about, stuff like that. So yeah, man, keep doing what you're doing, bro.
oh, I appreciate you giving me the opportunity, man. I can't tell you how excited I was when you sent me the idea to come on the podcast. And I was like, for sharing your platform with me, for the opportunity, the conversation. And yeah, if I can be helpful to your friend or to anybody else who knows somebody else who's gone through a miscarriage experience or anything like that, I I make myself available to just be able to talk to them and hear their experience, because what I'm trying to do is build a not just a community, but this momentum to really change the discourse and the narrative, and to create a hub of support for men in particular.
Mm.
And I need everybody's help, whether you're a man, whether you're a woman. Like, I need everybody's help to be able to do that. So I appreciate you giving me the chance to talk about that.
Oh yeah, for sure, for sure. Well, I guess we can end it there, man. I know you got babies. I'm gonna go ahead and kiss mine on the forehead. They better be in the bed right now. I'm gonna get in here and go and see who's still up, 'cause I know somebody gonna still have their eyes open.
Yeah.
and give out my kisses and my hugs, say my good nights. But man, like I said, once again, man, appreciate you for coming on and sharing your story and keep doing what you're doing. For all my listeners out there, y'all go and support him on IG. Before you go, tell them how they can find you on Instagram.
Yeah, you can find me on Instagram on Welcome to Fatherhood Pod or the Miscarriage Dad. And you can go to my YouTube channel, the Miscarriage Dad on YouTube, and subscribe to the channel. And what else? I co-host the Miscarriage Dads plural podcast with my friend Chris, who has also experienced the miscarriage. So we talk about our experiences and we bring on a host of other people to talk about that. So if you know anyone who wants to get on the podcast and share their experience, we'll be happy to talk to them. And like I mentioned a little while ago, the Welcome to Fatherhood podcast should be coming back sometime in 2024. I'm not sure when yet, but once I do, I'll make the announcement on Instagram. So those are the places where you can find me.
Cool. I just went and subscribed just now to your
Appreciate
channel,
it, brother.
and yeah, man. So all my listeners out there, man, if y'all listen to this, man, go and support a brother, man. Support a brother on his way to serving our community, because that's what I look at this as. This is serving the community, man. So appreciate all the support out there. Appreciate you, Kelly, for spending some time with me, man. You gave me a lot. You gave me a lot that I can work on, things that I can go do and put right into my tool belt as a dad, man. So I appreciate you, man, for real.
I appreciate you, my guy. I'm gonna keep you accountable on that therapy thing. So I'll check in on you in a couple of weeks to see how you've made any progress.
Oh yeah, appreciate you, man. So for everybody out there, it's Dad, Can We Talk? We're gonna get on up out of here after episode 117. We out. Bang. Bang. Noticing